This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's in! Campbell comes off the bench to be a hero! A superhero! Breakthrough! It's taken a while! It's been worth the wait!
To mark a new beginning. We are the ones of the spoken word. We are the ones who keep the planet spinning. And yes, one day we will rule the world.
Hey guys, I'm Si and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell Football Show. This is Series 2, Episode number 3, and the show is available as usual on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter live. A.C.E Podcast Nation, of course, your home to many great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts and more. So please do give us a follow on social media and keep up to date on upcoming shows and guests. Subscribe to that YouTube channel, click the bell for notifications. And plus, this podcast is now part of the Sports Social Podcast Network, the UK's first dedicated all sports podcast network. You can find the next show and all of the shows that A.C.E Podcast Nation produces on various subjects at the Sports Social websites. You can find them www.sport-social.co.uk, and all of our shows have their own little websites. And another little bit of housekeeping. This year, A.C.E Podcast Nation and the Andy Campbell Football Shows are supporting a charity, Super 6 Football Prediction League, raising money for two great charities, Maggie Centre, which is a cancer charity, and Mind Mental Health charity. There's a number of ex-footballers, ex-Cardiff City players who you can compete against, including our very own Andy Campbell, including also myself playing, as well as a lot of the regulars who watch the show. So if you want to get involved, there's cash prizes for the winners. The first round is this Saturday. So if you'd like to get involved, the link for the Facebook group is in the description below on YouTube and Facebook. And contact Will Melush, who will probably be in the chat this evening, and he can add you to the group and he can give you the code to join. But Super 6, and you can show how you know more about football than Andy Campbell. And obviously not myself, because it'd be ridiculous. But a big thank you to Black Diamond Sports, as ever, for all their help supporting the channel and the show. Black Diamond Sports is a global sports agency representing sports stars from around the world. And for more information, you can visit their social media pages and their website, the links to which are in the description below. Today's sponsor, Darren Ralston and Bespoke Financial. Darren is giving away a free will worth £140 cash with any new policy which is taken out. Check out this incredible offer. Give him a call. Tell him that we sent you. And if you take out any of their services, you will get £140 cash back. An amazing offer. And what's not to like about having £140 back. So we thank them for sponsoring the show and all their support as ever. But with all the housekeeping out of the way, let's get to the good stuff. I'm delighted to introduce first and foremost my co-host. He is the goal collector, the fox in the box, still the king of the Millennium Stadium, ex-Cardiff City and Middlesbrough hero, Davy Jones's favourite son, the goal machine, Mr. Andy Campbell. How are you, my friend?
Good evening. Yeah, I'm a little bit happier than I was last week, so apologies. I haven't really got around to saying sorry what happened last week. Obviously connection issues, but all sorted. Fingers crossed, everything's going to be perfect tonight. Got an amazing guest which in a minute. But really looking forward to it. But obviously, with what's going on in the world and not being a great week again, I want to dedicate tonight's show. I know Tony put it on social media the other day, and I had a long trip yesterday with my old man to a charity football event, and we were talking about it. And Terry Cooper unfortunately lost his life. He's ex-Leeds United defender and obviously Middlesbrough fullback as well. So I want to dedicate tonight's show to him and his family. Obviously, it's such a sad time, and to lose your life at any time. But just my thoughts and from everyone in the show, just to him and his family at this sad time.
Couldn't have said it better myself, mate. As always, mate, really important. Football community rallies around people's families, people's friends, people's clubs. They all mean a lot to the people of football at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You mentioned our tremendous guest this evening. I am very excited to welcome tonight's guest. He is a former England international. He was a defender for Aston Villa, Chelsea, Leeds United, Torino, Derby County, Stoke City. It is Mr. Tony Dorigo. Welcome, Tony. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Looking forward to chatting to you guys.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I'm really looking forward to it.
Tony, really huge thanks for coming on. Really looking forward to it, digging deep. I know we've got football fans on the world, but especially in the UK, from various clubs that you played for, you played against. So we will get some very interesting questions as well from the viewers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. So, Tony, what we like to do first and foremost is we ease you in nicely with something we call the Magnificent Seven, which is 7 quick-fire questions, and you just answer the first thing which comes to mind, just for the viewers to get to know you a little bit and your tastes and whatnot. There might be a couple of little grenades in there, you never know, but generally nice and easy. But let's have a go. Okay, Tony Dorigo, the Magnificent Seven. No, it's always nice and easy to start. Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show? I'm going to go for years ago, Only Fools and Horses. There we go. Always makes me laugh.
Classic, absolute classic.
I like it. Classic, yeah.
Most hostile atmosphere that you ever played a game of football in?
Millwall away on a Tuesday evening down at the old Den was quite interesting, but actually it was a place in southern Italy, and it was only, I think it held 9,000 or 10,000, and honestly I could not believe how much they actually wanted to kill us, basically. I mean, the atmosphere was incredible, but they made some noise. They did when I played for Torino, so that Amazing. Was pretty intense. But yeah, Cold Blow Lane, I think, with Herlock and Fashanu and all that lot. And I was about 19, 18. That was an experience. Yeah,
that's one for when you're a teenager.
Tony, you're not the first to mention Millwall as well. There's a few people who mentioned Millwall. Obviously, from my memories, obviously I didn't get to play at the old Den. I've seen videos, I've seen plenty of footage of it, and seen how hostile it was. But the new Den was just as hostile. For me, it's the people who make it hostile. I mean, the fans are very passionate about what they're doing. To them, it's a fabulous football club, but sometimes they can go a little bit too far. But hopefully, with their fans coming back in, hopefully they can make that as they have done in the last few years. But no, great answer that.
Okay, Tony, last couple then. Best manager you ever played for?
I'm going to split it in between two. It'll be Howard Wilkinson and Bobby Robson for quite different things. But yeah, those two are very impressive.
Okay, Chelsea or Leeds?
That's a tough one at the end. I saw the grenade coming. I'll have to go Leeds.
Angriest teammate?
Oh, Martin Keown. He could argue with himself, that boy.
He's an angry man. And then nice and easy to finish, and it doesn't have to be football related. Who is the greatest Australian or Englishman who has ever lived?
One guy that I used to just follow and love was actually Greg Norman, the golfer, because he was this big, blonde, good-looking Queenslander and he collected Ferraris. I mean, what's not to like, for God's sake? And they kept winning tournaments all around the world. So yeah, growing up, I did follow Mr. Norman quite closely. I thought he was a great ambassador for Australia.
Good stuff. I like it. I love that question. It's my favourite question in the Magnificent Seven, because obviously I changed the kind of nationality depending on who the guest is, but it's such a wide-ranging question that literally the majority of people will say something completely different for completely different reasons, because everyone's had a different life experience. I just love it. It's not maybe the quickest fire question of that's ever been designed, but I do like it. So, and I think what we'll do first and foremost,
I think they'll say as well. Sorry,
go on. Go on, you mate.
I think Tony's the first Australian we've had on here as well. So it's the first Australian answer, I'm sure, to my knowledge, from Series 1 and Series 2. I can't remember we've had another one.
Yeah, nothing off the top of my head. I'll have a little think now, but I think indeed. So what we like to do now, Tony, is we have a thing called Tell Me Why, and what it is I give you and Andy 2 questions or subjects to talk about. You have 60 seconds to discuss the subject or answer the question. There's a timer, which I will set up in just a second. But as the guest, you get to decide if you would like to go first or second.
I'll go first. I will go first.
First. So the first question or subject is: Harry Kane didn't show up for training today. Some would say in a bid to force through a move away from Spurs. So I've seen it called unjustified. I've seen it called unprofessional, childish, something he needs to do because of the way Daniel Levy is. But I would like to know your opinions on Harry Kane not turning up to training today and potentially forcing through a move. And your 60 seconds on that very simple subject starts now.
I think what's clear is Harry Kane is, a wonderful talent, wonderful player, and he feels a lot for Spurs. He's given them absolutely everything, and I can only imagine that there certainly has to be an agreement behind the scenes for him to go and act that way, because I'm not sure you could find a more professional player, a more committed player. But I think it gets to the point that, okay, he wants to win something. He's that good that, he wants to go and win trophies at the end of his career. He wants to look back. He wants to do it with Spurs. But once you lose that belief, then you have to look elsewhere. And I'm sure he had an agreement with Daniel Levy end of last season. Otherwise, he wouldn't turn up. Or he just can't read his calendar properly. Very easy to do. You just don't turn up on the wrong day. You're still on your holiday somewhere. These things happen. But no, I'm sure that he's feeling probably very aggrieved at the moment that what was agreed privately between him and his chairman suddenly is turning to something very different. But I think knowing Mr. Levy and how he operates, it'll go right to the
60
wire.
Seconds.
He'll drive up the price and get 100 million. There we go.
It's very good. I tend to agree with you, actually. I think that it was quite clear there was some sort of agreement in place last year for him to move. So we'll see what Andy thinks. But Andy, the same question. Your 60 seconds starts now.
Difficult question. I believe there's been some probably communication behind the scenes that obviously the public don't know about, because Harry, I agree with Tony, is very professional, ultra professional. Yes, he might want to leave, and yes, he might want to better his career, but he loves Spurs. He loves about it. Yes, he might want to move away from the football club to progress and win trophies, but he will be back at Spurs. He will work socks off to get fit in pre-season, be ready for the start of the season if a move doesn't materialise. Because, listen, we're not talking about a £10 million transfer here. We're talking about mega money, and he's going to take an offer, either cash or players, to entice him away from that football club. And if that happens, then good luck to whoever buys him. But there's a lot of steps ahead of both Harry Kane, Spurs, and whoever buys him for this move to go ahead. They can't just do it overnight. It's going to take a lot of movement. So not going to training for me is not the answer. Unfortunately, you know what I mean. We've all been there where we don't want to go. But
it's your 60 seconds, mate. Yeah, I don't think it's the right way to do it. Tough question,
by the way.
It is really hard, especially in 60 seconds. I just think with any player, look, Harry Kane, as Tony said, he's such a professional. But I do think if a player can do things like this, it's a bit of a problem, because if he can do it at Spurs, the club he's come through at and loves, he can do it at any club, which is maybe a little bit of a red flag for potential, like future clubs, I guess. But I think generally, I do think there was just an agreement, and maybe Daniel Levy's dragging his feet a bit in the sale. However, I will put another question to you just before you have the second tell me why. Andy, do you think that Jack Grealish signing to Man City from Villa for 100 million, does that complicate things a little bit? Because I'm imagining Harry Kane isn't going for less than 120 mil. Because can Man City, they've got the money, of course, but with financial fair play rules, is spending 220 million going to be doable?
Doable, yes. Is it within the financial fair play rules? And I'm confused, because the financial fair play rules are supposed to be there to make it fair and equal, and just trying to even things out on obviously income, obviously the stadium and etc. You know what I mean? The way that clubs are run. Listen, they've got enough money to go and buy those kind of players 10 times over. But does it make it fair for the rest of the Premier League? No, I don't believe that they'll buy. So I think there's a rabbit away somewhere. You know what I mean? I think, is it a smoke screen? Will it get Harry Kane going on behind the scenes? Is the interest in Jack Grealish?
Jack Grealish is signed.
I don't know.
Has it been announced?
I don't know. Well, I don't think it's been announced, has it? You know what I mean? But I think there's something going to happen very soon. I'm not sure Man City are the team for Harry Kane. I'd love to see him in a red United shirt. I know obviously Tony won't, with being Leeds, but I think United are missing that one number. Number 9 for United would make the Premier League interesting for United and for every other team. I'm not a Man United fan, but I just think it would make the league very interesting for a number of teams.
Yeah, a number 9, once Cavani leaves at the end, he's probably going to retire or go back to South America at the end of this season. So I think a number 9 for United is like the final piece in the jigsaw for some. And Harry Kane fits the bill if he can stay fit. Tony, very quickly, were you surprised when you read that he hadn't turned up for training?
Yes, I was, because he would probably be one of the last people I would expect to do that, because he has been so professional and he has stuck by Spurs. He would have had numerous offers before to go here, there, and everywhere, but he's stuck there, and I think he's hoped and hoped and hoped every single season, the recruitment, that the team would get better and closer to the top 3 or 4, but they didn't. They went backwards last season. That agreement, I'm certain, was struck, and this is him saying, I'm not going to be talked around. This is what's happening, so you better sort it out. And it's not the great way to go. I wouldn't like to be doing that, and I never have done like that. But I think that horse bolted a long time ago. The power certainly is with the players, and it takes a huge club and a big wealthy chairman to say no. We'll keep that £100 million player unhappy on the bench and not playing or whatever. So, we all know that's not going to happen. So something has to work out one way or the other.
Yeah, there's a few very interesting transfer sagas, and in there, if you think like Pogba's getting to the last year of his contract and has turned out a contract, Grealish looks like could be on his way. Yeah. Harry Kane, they're all.
I also think as well, Spurs have been quite unlucky over the past probably 10-15 years in terms of big players leaving. A lot of Sol Campbell debacle. Leaving on the free transfer and going obviously to a local rival. Yeah, you know what I mean. The only way that Spurs are going to get kind of money is he or for me, he's going to go to a rival again, and I think Spurs fans will feel a little bit let down again. And with him being a hero and a cult hero of the nation, never mind just as Spurs fans, and he goes back to obviously the new ground. He's going to get dogs abuse, and you know what I mean. It's a shame, isn't it? Because for a player to be loved, obviously young. I would have hated to play for Middlesbrough, for example, and then go away and come back and not be loved by my hometown club. It would have been heartbreaking, you know what I mean? But I suppose money talks sometimes, and he wants to go and win things. He's passionate, but you know what I mean, to not turn up for me, and that, like I said in my little 60 seconds, that's not the right thing to do and the right way to go about it. And if he's going to move, then someone will buy him, and money talks. You know what I mean? Daniel Levy's, listen, for someone Harry's age, if a club comes in with a big enough offer, he's a businessman. He knows that he's not going to get that money next year or the year after. You know, he would accept it.
Spot on, mate. Okay, so on to the next Tell Me Why, which is nice and easy. Very, very quickly, I just want to say a really big thank you. We've had 2 super chats. We had one from Gaz. He says, a little contribution for the best podcast in the game and the professional job the side did last week under pressure with tech issues. Well in, lads. I appreciate that, mate. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And there was another one, a whopping from Donna Perry. She says, we all love the show. And this is from Will Melush, who requested that his sweepstake winnings came to Ace Podcast Nation. Well, all I can say is a massive thank you to Donna for making the donation. But of course, Will, that's incredible. Really appreciate that, mate. And any money which sort of be donated for super chats and stuff, it all goes back into creating content and whatnot and new shows. But I cannot tell you how much that's appreciated and welcome. I really thank you guys. So the second Tell Me Why subject is just as simple as the first. Tony Dorigo, you've got 60 seconds, and the subject is Stuart Downing has retired. I'd like to kind of discuss his career, his legacy from his playing career, and just a bit of a tribute, if you like, to Stuart Downing's career. Obviously an ex-England international and whatnot. It's quite a tricky one, but we'll see how we go. Your 60 seconds start
Not
now.
for me. Not for me.
No, I think Stewie Downing, as actually my Middlesbrough supporting partner, has told me is an absolute hero. So, and not only at Borough, like so many other clubs, he certainly played extremely well. And of course, left-sided, tricky winger. I think it's the longevity as well. He's done it at lots and lots of clubs. I think it was at Villa, West Ham as well, and all around the place. Blackburn is at his final port of call, I think. But yeah, to keep having that, I think ability, hunger, and to keep showing what he can do. And I think what you also know when someone like that plays for that length of time at that level, they're a really good pro, really good spot on to be around. So lots of good managers signed him, and he's had one heck of a career. And what did he get to? 36 or 37, something like that. So
yeah, I
he
think
certainly
it was
lasted
around that. Yeah.
That's really impressive. But I think fortunately he played on the left-hand side, so I probably didn't quite cross over with him. Otherwise, I would have kicked in on the right.
That's your
So
60 seconds. But you're 100% right in everything you say. And I got to say as well, Stuart was an absolute tremendous guest when we had him on the show. He was one of the first guests when we changed the format to the football show rather than the championship show, and he was absolutely tremendous. He was really, really good. He made 35 appearances for England, which is a good, and he played all through the ages as well, from 16s all the way up to first team. Tremendous stuff. But Andy Campbell, I know you're going to enjoy this, my friend. So you have 60 seconds to talk about Stuart Downing's career as he's retired. Go.
Oh, listen, I don't think there's enough positives to talk about Stewie. Cracking player, cracking lad. But as a player, fantastic ever Middlesbrough player, in my opinion. We've had some crackers, we've had world-class players, but for me, he's come through the ranks. He's deserved everything he's got. He's got winners' medals. He's got UEFA Cup runners-up medal. Got his moves. Kenny Dalglish signed him at Liverpool. He's moved across the board. He's played Premier Leagues. He's won plenty of trophies. He's been involved in World Cup squads, like our great guest did tonight. And I just think he just deserves that recognition of being a top player, top professional. Because I think sometimes when you retire, you don't get that recognition what you thoroughly deserved. He played as long as he could. He's gone out in his own terms, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And I think he deserves all the credit he gets. And I hope somewhere down the line there's a space for him within football somewhere, because I know he still loves the game. He's passionate about the clubs that he's played for. He's got a great reputation. The players love playing with him. The fans have gotten great. Oh, listen, what a great question, by the way. I love that, because Stewie's obviously a friend of mine. I grew up watching. He grew up watching me. I enjoyed watching him when I moved on, and I don't. I'll probably say about the same guest as well. Tony, you probably agree when you played with players as well that left-footed players become so special, because I don't know what it is. It's the technique. It's the left-footed players. There's a million of them. The left-footed players stand out a lot more. It's technique, ability. They're just because there's not that many of them, and it was just it was just a joy to be around, to watch from the stands, to watch from the training pitch. When he came through at Middlesbrough, I could just tell we had a player in our hands. And I was probably giving him a little bit of disrespect at the time, that you think he's not ready and you think he's not going to get to the level. For me, the level he thoroughly deserved them. I'd probably more caps for England because of players playing out of position at the time. It was probably Frank and Stevie Gerrard playing out there at times, you know what I mean? Whereas Stu would have given us a little bit more balance because we didn't have that left-sided play at the time. But for me, 35 caps, Premier League appearances, playing for his hometown club twice. You know, he lived the dream and more. And fair play to him. And I know he's currently in Ibiza, enjoying it with his little girl and his family and his wife. So, you know, fair play to him.
Good stuff. Tony, do you see a future in management for Stuart Downing, or do you think he's more likely to go the media route? Or
to be honest, it really is up to him. You know, what he enjoys, what he wants. Does he want to go kind of back in that pressure situation, or just want to coach? You know, enjoy the game, or do what I do now, is commentate and punditry and what have you. So, you know, the options are there for him. But I'm sure, you know, whichever one he takes up, with all his experience, he'll do a great job. But make sure whatever it is, you know, that he himself enjoys it. And I'm sure we'll see him back in some format or other.
Great stuff. Tony, we already got loads of questions in the live chat, so I feel like now's a good chance to throw a couple at you. Donna Perry says, what football team do you now support, Tony?
I don't want to be like a politician, but I'm going to come out with the lines here because listen, when you are growing up in Australia and you've got all these dreams about, you know, playing over in England and what have you, I just delighted to play for every single team that I played for, and Villa gave me my chance, so I'll never ever forget that. I had some great times at Chelsea, which I'm sure we'll come on to a little bit later. Then of course we won the title at Leeds United, and what an experience it was over in Torino, and Jim Smith, you know, at Derby was wonderful. So it's great, and I look out for them all, but there is one that I'll say I look out for first, and I'm an ambassador now for Leeds United, so it is Leeds. I commentate on them home and away as well, and do some TV stuff. So, I must admit I thoroughly enjoyed everywhere that I went. But Leeds, it is my team.
Good shout. Good shout. Paul Hipkiss says, "What was it like to be amongst the 1990 World Cup squad? And do you have any funny Gaza stories?"
The podcast only has about 40 minutes left, so we clearly can't go into them all. Half of them will be ruled out by just I can't just, you know, obviously put some of the stuff out there. The 1990 World Cup was what an experience it was. And what was interesting is now, if you imagine social media, you know, the players are always within fingertips of every single bit of information of what's going on. But we were locked away in Sardinia, you know, in our training camp, so we didn't really see too much until, of course, we got to the games and back. But when we eventually arrived home into Luton Airport, and there's 200,000 people there, you know, we've got open top buses, and you think, my God, you know, the country's gone nuts. And it was fantastic. You know, we weren't favourites to start with. We just got better and better. We fell on a formation that really worked for us. But if you go through the team, we had some good players and great balance to the side as well. You know, leaders at the back as well. So it was a great experience. It really was. And Gaza, of course, was always in the middle of it all. What one clean one can I tell you? I know, right. There was a golf event, and we got sponsored by Wilson Golf Club. So we're in Sardinia in our training camp, and we actually stayed on the golf course as well. And we got sponsored by Wilson. And so we all had new clubs, new bags and everything else. And there was a promotional day. And we're going to go out in 4 balls and play together. And the cameras were here then everywhere. Of course, I got drawn to play with Gaza. And so on the tee, it's obviously 2v2. So we're trying to collect the balls to see which pair is going to play against each other. By the time we're looking around for Gaza, he's pulled up in his buggy. He's put his ball down. He's hit it. He's driven off already. We already have 4 England players in the fairway. Everyone's ducking for Gaza's ball. He drives on. He was my partner. He finished an hour and 10 minutes before me. He just played through everyone. Of course, I lost because I was playing against 2. It was 2v1, for God's sake. But that's what he was like. And everyone thought it was hysterical and funny, and you know. But that's what he was like. Unfortunately, when you're away as well for 6-7 weeks at a time, you need those jokers. You need those sort of people. But I must admit, I roomed with Gaza once, and once only. And sometimes just little doses of Gaza is okay, but full on was a challenge.
good shout.
Yeah,
I know,
once is
Andy,
enough for
obviously you
Gaza,
played with Gaza as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
listen,
one
you
thing.
know what I mean, to be in the same team, as him, and to be in the same changing room as him. But I agree with Tony. You know, I didn't share a room with him. I enjoyed his changing room banter. I think he got us through the 2 seasons. He got us promoted. Single-handedly, you know what I mean, with his togetherness, with his banter, with his attitude, and his quality obviously shines through. But I think as a young player, you know what I mean, you just take the snippets out of the good things what he did, what he did, and how he handled himself on the training pitch. And I think that was key for me. You know what I mean, that his attributes and his ability was just unquestionable. And the biggest regret for me was, you know, probably at a young age, when he probably moved to Spurs, if he'd gone to United and Fergie could have got hold of that, his whole lifestyle probably could have been a little bit different. And but would it have taken away from his camaraderie and how fun he was, and you know what I mean, and the fun guys and the brilliant side and the caring side he had, because everyone sometimes focuses on the negatives of Paul, and for me, you've got to look at the positives and remember the genius he was on the pitch and the fun he was off the pitch as well, because it just made him the whole package for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And people ask me, you know, who your best player ever played with, and it's always Gaza, simply because we were in the England 21 squad together. I was the captain. Trying to control him obviously was impossible. However, just give him the ball and let him go and do his stuff. But when we both then got through to the full squad, you know, suddenly we're playing against, you know, Brian Robson, Gary Lineker, Chris Waddle, John Barnes. Yet this little Geordie kid is having a yard of space, a second more time than anyone else. You know, these are the best players in England. And this guy, Gaza, it was just outstanding. So, yeah, he was something else. He was one heck of a player. Always fun to be around. And you're right. It's just a shame that I agree with you, Andy, that, you know, on the football pitch, he was just spot on. If he could have taken that off the pitch, I think then, you know, he would have had one heck of a career and then possibly, you know, one of the best players in the world. Absolutely. But yeah, I don't know about going Manchester United. I'm not sure anyone could have done contain Gaza.
I think,
but by being around him, he was just, you know, amazing. Enjoy him while he was there, and that's what we did.
I think Tony is so interesting, like not just in football, but like sports, music. So often, you know, films everywhere in sort of entertainment, if you like, industries. So many geniuses are also maybe a little bit flawed away from what they do, whether it's sport or art or whatever it may be. You know, it's not just Gaza by any means. And over the years, there's been so many. It just seems to be something which comes along with that spark of genius, unfortunately. And it's part of their characters. And I agree with you. I think even though, and there's been players which Fergie has not been able to control over the years. You know, you look at Ravel Morrison, who was often tipped as being as good as Gaza, but has never really realised his potential. So I don't think necessarily that Fergie would have been able to perhaps, what's the word, kind of maybe tame him a little bit off the pitch, but you know, is what it is. Last question from the chat, for a while, and then we'll let Mr. Campbell loose with some questions on you. But James Costley would like to know why you chose to play for England over Australia.
When I was, I came over at 15 years of age to Aston Villa, and then I got into the first team at 18. And about 5 or 6 games into my Villa career, Australia asked me to play for them, and I was, you know, absolutely honoured. But the problem was that the international calendars weren't aligned as they are today. And Australia asked me to go and play, I think it was against American Samoa. I didn't even know there was an American Samoa at that time. Fiji, New Zealand, you know, someone else in a short space of time for these qualifiers. And I remember being so excited, going in to see the manager at the time and explaining this, that, you know, I'm going to play against American Samoa and New Zealand. He says, Tony, you've just got into the first team at Aston Villa at 18. We're going to Old Trafford. We're going to go play at Highbury. You know, are you really telling me you want to go and play against, you know, American Samoa? I said, well, yeah, I'd like to. He said, well, you're not. So get out of there and make sure you're fit and ready for the game on Saturday, because, you know, the club had the control and power, and the players certainly didn't. And I couldn't just take 4 or 5 weeks off and miss, you know, playing for Villa. So that kind of put an end to that. Then a year or two after that, England came to me and said, you do know by applying for residency after 5 years, you can then get a British passport, and then you can choose which country you'd like to play for. We'd like you to play for us, so if you could hang on and do that. And that's the choice that I made. So I didn't ever pull on the green and gold of Australia. I decided to go with England, and I'm loving the weather so much. I'm still here. It's wonderful.
Is there any sort of regret there that you never got to represent Australia?
It is, of course, because I was born and bred there, and I very much follow a lot of things about Australia. My family are all still, out there as well. But I really didn't feel I had, much of a choice at all, because they said no. It's as simple as that. Now it would be very different. If I had the same decision to make now, players go down to South America, players go to Australia, they can go back wherever they want because the games are at the same time, and you play your couple of games and you come back. I just didn't have that opportunity. So, actually that's interesting. Australia beat them 31-0. I think the game that I missed was it was 24 or 25-0 or whatever it is, or maybe it was that 31. Someone scored 14 goals. An Aussie striker scored 14 goals in the same game, which is the most kind of in the world. I was going to say, that's
got to be a world record, surely.
I think it has to be a world record. And I missed that game. I could have scored as well.
I think it's interesting as well, Tony, that now Australia play games in the UK at times. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the players that are based in around Europe, and I think obviously the travelling. You know what I mean? Like your managers say, I don't want you missing too many games, because when you come back, if you play a game on the Wednesday or the Thursday and you're due to play on the Saturday or the Sunday, it would just be impossible. So you're not just missing one game anymore; you're missing 2 and 3 potentially, and yeah, like you say, it's a big risk. You know what I mean? Because with it all being aligned now, like you say, because all the World Cup qualifiers are at the same time of the calendar, the end of the seasons, everything's just within its time space. The majority of the Australian players now are playing in a more competitive league, even though their league's a lot more is a lot better than it used to be, which is pleasing. But I only know that from obviously Mark Schwarzer when he played at Middlesbrough, that he loved going back to play for Australia. He loved representing for his country, but he was always away for long periods, which it did have an impact on us as a club. You know what I mean? Because obviously he was our number one, and when he didn't come back at the times that we needed him to come back, obviously on a Friday when we were doing work to prepare for a big game, that he ended up didn't play, and we lost a few points along the way, and it did have a huge impact on us staying in the division that season. So it's you know what I mean? It's not his fault, obviously, but clubs do, and especially back in the day, they had a lot of power. In order to choose for players to go and play for the country, and it's there's nothing prouder, you know what I mean, to Tony to play for England for a moment, to want to play for his country in Australia it's brilliant, and for the viewers to understand that it's such a proud moment to represent anyone's country. You know what I mean? We had Paul Devlin on the show 2 weeks ago, born and bred Brummie, you know what I mean, proudest Brummie in the world, but he's obviously Scottish, and he played for Scotland and supported him in the Euros, and wasn't bothered if England won, lost or drawn. He's, you know what I mean, he's a proud Scotsman now, and I love that. I love the way his desires and obviously his alliance has changed, and it just shows that you don't have to be born in a certain country. It's your heritage, it's your family, and it's your desire to want to better yourself as a player as well. Sometimes it's not just about where you're born and where you're bred, because it's where the opportunity lands and where opportunity falls as well, which is the pleasing thing.
Yeah, and I think also it's not as if, I've played for a few years and then gone back to Australia and that's it. I've made my home here. I was always going to. So I think, I'm very proud to have done what I've done with England. I had some great experiences, and I wouldn't change it the world. But that doesn't, stop me thinking that I would have liked that green and gold, at the time, because that would have been wonderful as well.
The icing on the cake, I guess, would have a phenomenal career, I guess, as well. But I mean, look, you had a fantastic career, both as an international player and as with all the great clubs you played for. Obviously, we've had a few questions where people have asked about, who's the best player you played with, etc., which you mentioned was Gaza. But an interesting question, which I just noticed, Paul Hipkiss asked you both to name the best 11 from the players that you have played alongside off the top of your head, which I think is a difficult question off the top of your head. But if you're both willing to give it a crack, we'll go to Tony first.
That's a difficult one. Goalkeeper. Let's start with a goalie.
Who's the best goalkeeper you've ever played with?
Well, obviously David Seaman and Schultz were there. No, they're not bad. But Nigel Martin, I'd probably go Nigel. I mean, he was
yes,
he certainly was some keeper, and
phenomenal.
he was one heck of a player. So there's my goalie. Go on, Andy. What's your goalie?
I've had a couple. Richard Wright, Paul Robinson, obviously ex Leeds. I'm going to go for Mark Schwarzer. I noticed. I just thought he was immense. Coming from where he came from, Germany to Bradford, then stepping up to Middlesbrough within a short space of time. I thought he left a legacy within the Premier League. And being Australian, I thought he's doing obviously the punditry stuff now. He just shows that the class of the man. I think he was superb. So yeah, I'm going to go Mark.
I think right back, Mel Sterland at Leeds that first year that I played with him. Unfortunately, got injured his Achilles, and then not long after, really struggled with that and retired. But Steve Clarke as well at Chelsea, he was a heck of a right back. So Scotland manager now, but Scotland international. I thought we as fullback pairing we did rather well, and so I'll go for Clarkey.
I think he was quite underrated, Steve Clarke. I got to say.
Yeah, was it?
Andy Campbell, who's your right back, mate?
Right back, I'm going to go. I know he's played wide right before. I'm going to go Kieran Dyer. Obviously, he made a name for himself in England, set up as a right back. I played with him at the 21s, and he had everything as a modern fullback. He could play up and high and wide as a wing back, but he could defend as well. He had pace to burn. He could tackle. And if it wasn't for the injuries that he picked up, the middle of his career at Newcastle, especially, he could have gone on to being a phenomenal player, to have an even better career. But I thought he was excellent as well. But yeah, Kieran Dyer for me, right back.
A couple of centre halves for me. I'm thinking the type of player that's probably gone slightly out the game now, and that's absolute leaders. And I played with two huge ones, and that Tony Adams and the Terry Butcher. My goodness, that's a pairing. They were just so inspirational and phenomenal players, but as a leader in a dressing room, I'm not sure you can beat those two. And I think the likes of Chrissy Fairclough and Chris White, they were like silent centre halves who would run through brick walls. They were incredible pairing, but as absolute leaders, I'd go for Butch and Tony Adams.
Okay, I tell you what, there is not many better centre half pairings than those two. I got to say, Andy Campbell, can you better that as that centre half pairing?
I don't think I can better as a pairing. I'm going to go individually because just for the way that these two players probably match up for me. But we spoke about pairs, didn't we, during the Euros and the shows? Obviously, John Stones and Harry Maguire, Chiellini and Bonucci. But the two that Tony just mentioned, they're on par with those kind of players, and they would just fit into those kind of just images now. Just absolutely fantastic. No, my two, I'm going for Rio. Rio Ferdinand's just Rolls Royce, for me, the best defender I've ever played against. Best defender I played with as well. He came out with the ball. He had everything that you wanted for a modern day footballer. Could head, could tackle, could pass, could dribble out. He was world class. I'm going to pick a friend of the show as well. I'm going to go Danny Gabidon. To play with him at the age I played with him coming through, I thought he was excellent. The game which really stood out for me with Danny was I watched him against Italy for Wales at the Millennium Stadium. He man-marked Del Piero, and not many people can do that. Danny did it when he played for Cardiff City in League One, and then obviously
and he was so young, mate, as well, wasn't he?
He was very young, and that was the end of him. He goes and signs for West Ham, and he took over the Premier League, and that was it. Then, if he wasn't, then again his injuries took over a little bit. But for me, I think he was another similar mould as Rio. Rolls Royce type of players. But for me, pace for my pairing, I've gone down.
Interesting. This is Tony. So you, the defender, you've gone for Tony Adams, Terry Butcher, Steve Clarke. I would say quite physical players, quite very good defensively. Andy Campbell, the striker, has gone for Kieran Dyer, Rio Ferdinand, and Danny Gabidon, who are more footballers, technically very good, pacey. Very interesting how these teams are developing. Who's your left back, Tony?
Me, obviously, and we're going to keep
Absolutely.
a clean sheet. So that's it. I mean, there's we're going to move into midfield now because I'm playing in this one because this looks a good team. Midfield. Now, I played with some wonderful players, obviously with England, what have you. But I'm going to go as a whole four, and the Leeds United midfield that won the title. So Strachan on the right, Gary Speed on the left, David Batty and Gary McAllister. as a balance, as a midfield four, they had a bit of absolutely everything. And some really talented players there. And David Batty, I must admit, if I was ever in the trenches going to war, I want that guy alongside me because, he was absolutely phenomenal and maybe not appreciated outside of, his teammates. But I tell you what, he was tremendous as well. So that's going to be my midfield four.
I also think Gordon Strachan was an underrated footballer. I think he was actually a better footballer than people give him credit for. He wasn't just, physical, a good, aggressive midfielder. I think he was quite a good footballer as well.
Sorry, just on that, he wasn't actually aggressive at all in that. He was one of the cleverest players. He's actually my most difficult opponent. And I say that because he was smart. He would go into areas of the pitch that would drag me, out of my position. I didn't want to go deep and inside, and that's where he would be. So by the time I get to him, the ball's already gone past me. And certainly at Manchester United, Mark Hughes is then holding the ball up. I've got to now run back the other way 20 yards, and then Strachan gets it in 10 yards of space. So, a really clever player. So I always found it not straightforward. He wouldn't want to take me on the right wing because that is more my strength, but he would go places which were his strength. So a really clever, but as you say, really technically, gifted as well.
Like it. Andy, so we need from you a left back and then a midfield four.
I've been really fortunate here because I'm getting a little bit of an opportunity to think of my players, so it's great. Left back, I've gone for Christian Ziege. Very lucky to play with him at Middlesbrough. His left foot was something to die for. His set pieces, the way that he was ping a ball from left to right. The way that I played was great because he would pick me out the eye of a needle from long distance, which was absolutely fantastic. I've gone for my midfield. I've gone for a tight three with a number 10 behind two centre forwards. So my tight three. In the centre, I've gone for Paul Gascoigne. I've gone for Frank Lampard. I've gone for Steven Gerrard. Those three. Listen, there's goals there. There's a bit of aggression there. There's bombing on. I think we've got some passing, some intricate play. And my number 10 who's going to float here, then everywhere. I've gone for the little magician at Middlesbrough, Juninho, because for me, I was so lucky at Middlesbrough to play with the Gazzers, and then Juninho came, and it was just like for like that you've gone from one magician to another magician. And you give him the ball in any position, he can make something happen. And as a centre forward or a wide player, just a dream because you get into those pockets, those areas, he can pick a pass out. You make it. He probably sees the pass before you see your run or you're making your run. It was just an amazing opportunity as a young player to play with those kind of players and to train with them and to pick the best bits like earlier on from these kind of players. But Before Tony moves on to centre forwards, by the way, what a question! Whose question was this? This is the best question we've ever had.
Quiz. It is phenomenal. People are loving it as well.
What a question!
It's really good, really good. Might have to make this a regular deal. So what I would like from you, Tony Dorigo, is your two strikers and a manager.
Oh, and a manager. I'm not going to go for two strikers. I'm going to, obviously, because the best player I played with is Gazza, so I'm going to have to put him in there. Behind the striker, but Gazza can go where he wants and do what he wants because I've got a midfield four in there that will do the things at the back that he can then go and play. My striker, I played with a few good ones, really good ones. Obviously, Lee Chapman at Leeds, but then Kerry Dixon at Chelsea was fun. What a phenomenal goal scorer he was. But with England, righty, Alan Shearer, but I'm going to go Gary Lineker because Links, I must admit, as a one-touch finisher, I'm not sure I've seen better. It doesn't matter what type of ball ever came into the box. He would just slot it home first time. It could be bouncing, it could be in the air. And he couldn't actually thump it from 30 yards. But I tell you what, 18 yards and in, I've never seen anything better. So I think with all that ability I've got in midfield and Gaza, I need someone just to put the ball in the back of the net. That's Lineker. There we go.
Yeah. So funny enough, I think a few weeks back I said, I can't remember if it was on one of our shows or if it was on with Kev. I said that, in my opinion, the best two finishers the Premier League have ever seen. And I said specifically, like you just said, sort of first-time finishers, instinctive finishers for me was Van Nistelrooy and Gary Lineker because they were so instinctive and they could, like you say, first just one touch finish, gone. They would shoot early before the keeper could set himself. It's just phenomenal finishers. So what we'll do, Andy, you give us your two up top, and then we'll go to the managers.
I'm going to have one sub as well, so I'll happily go on the bench just for these two centre forwards alone. So my two centre forwards, I'm going for Fabrizio Ravanelli and Michael Owen because I can't leave one of them out. So I will happily sit on the bench just for them two, just for this once. Michael was just a dream to play with. I knew at 14, 15, coming through the England setup, that he was a world-class footballer already, and trying to keep up the stats had and try to match him at that young age was just impossible. I managed to obviously make my debut at a similar time in the Premier League, but to hit goals he was hitting at that 18 to play in the World Cup, scoring goals in the major tournament. I mean, it'd never be repeated at that level the way that he was doing it for Liverpool. You know what I mean? To play the team that he did, and obviously his partner Ravanelli, his first season, his first goal, his first game against Liverpool, scored a hat-trick, scored 30 plus that season. Yes, we got relegated, but probably shouldn't have with what happened, but we got us to cup finals, scored at Wembley against Leicester City. A legend of a man, brilliant footballer. He obviously won the Champions League 2 days before he signed for Middlesbrough, as you do. Middlesbrough had that kind of pull at the time to sign Premier League and Champions League winners, so it was just a surreal time. But yeah, two unbelievable players, and I think, to be fair, I think they could probably do well together with the stature, with Fab being a bigger player and Michael running in behind, and Fab being more of a build-up player. I think they'd probably compare and play really well with it.
So Andy, you benched yourself. I've got to say, the only defensive player in your side is your goalkeeper, but so it could be like 15 all. But then Tony's team is looking solid, but two phenomenal teams. Paul, who asked the question originally, has also requested that you both name a captain as well as a manager. So, Tony, out of your team, who would be the captain and who would be your manager?
I'll let Tony Adams and Butch fight each other out for that one. I'm not sure who's going to win, but I think my manager would be Bobby Robson, because he would be able to handle all of those different characters, and of course has handled Gaza to great effect. But Bobby was just what a wonderful guy, wonderful character. You know, he believed in you so much. He had great passion, great knowledge. He would get names mixed up, but that made you love him even more. So Bobby Robson would be the manager.
Good start. And what about you, Mr. Campbell? Who's captain and your manager, mate?
My captain, I've got for Stevie G. I think he's a born leader. You could tell from a younger age, and obviously throughout his Liverpool career, the trophies that he's lifted. G for my manager, it won't be Dave Jones, as everyone probably thinks I'm gonna go for. No, it was out with two. Howard Wilkinson obviously played a big part in me in England under 21 setup, but I'm going for Brian Robson. And the reason why, because for me personally, he impact from me. He was like a father figure on and off the pitch. He was great for me. So yeah, I'm gonna go for Campbell himself for my gaffer.
Excellent stuff. Well done, gentlemen, because that was not easy on the fly. We didn't have that question, but yeah, well done, Paul. That was a great question. I really enjoyed that, listening to some of the players.
I do think
Go on.
I do think Tony's team would probably win, if I'm honest. I think
they
Tony's
wouldn't
team
concede any
once
goals.
they get in front,
We can defend.
well, exactly.
For goodness
and if they get in front, it's screwed. Yeah. I think obviously Butch would have his blood headband on again. It'd be heading and kicking everything. It'd be. I'll tell you what, it'd be a decent game though. It'd be a decent game. I think I probably needed Kevin Keegan as my manager.
Andy, you've got the super sub extraordinaire on the bench in yourself.
Exactly, there is that. And
So
Tony
it'd be
didn't have
just like the Millennium
so,
Stadium, wouldn't it? 1-0.
Yeah, we'd win in extra time. 114 minutes. Yeah.
Excellent. That was phenomenal. I was really loved listening. Just some of the players you both played with, incredible players. Tony Al Baker says, "Hiya, Tony. Did you have any superstitions when you were playing, and who was the striker you were most worried about coming up against?"
I didn't have any superstitions. I think a lot of players did. Goalkeepers, they're all crazy anyway, but some of them did as well. But me, no. The only thing I would like to do is go out third, in a line when we going out to the pitch. But kind of that is about it. So I don't believe in kind of luck and all that sort of stuff. You make your own luck, and you get on with it. But I think certainly we have teammates that do all sorts of very strange stuff, and put one sock on first and all this sort of thing. How can you remember all that rubbish? I mean, just get your gear on, get out there and play, and that's it.
Yeah, indeed. Some people take it really far, like superstitions. They're so intense about them. I always remember Paul Ince used to come out without his top on until he made it to the pitch. Was one, and there's obviously so many over the years. I've never really understood it, but I guess football is a superstitious bunch, some of them. Andy, did you have any superstitions, mate? Like pre-game superstitions or rituals?
No, not at all. No, I agree with Tony. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you get invested, it's hard to do the same thing again. You know what I mean? I think sometimes you're superstitious about what you eat and what time you eat, but you don't replicate, or you can't replicate the same kind of food because you're eating in different places, and it's so hard. You know what I mean? I remember I played against Liverpool at Anfield, my first ever Premier League start, and I remember walking down the time when obviously walk down and walk back up, and all the Liverpool players were obviously tapping the sign and touching the sign, and you know what I mean? That made me think, does it give you a look? Does that, you know what I mean? So I remember a couple of years down the line, I was a little bit more experienced. I was probably only in my 20s. And I touched myself before the game thinking it worked for those kind of players. So see if it worked for me. I think we got beat 5-0. I had a nightmare and
never
missed a couple of chances. So I just thought to myself, I was overthinking about it. Yeah, I won't do stuff like that, because I just think it's certain players, it makes people probably focus more. I won't call it a superstition. You know what I mean? Superstition. I just think putting your left sock on first and then your right shin pad, you can't always replicate it. So, and if you have a bad game, you can't blame the getting dressed in certain different places or different ways for me. You know what I mean? So you play well because you're destined to play well. You play well because you're prepared to play well. And for me, it's not about you. Sometimes it's about your team. And if you play badly and you win, sometimes you've got to take it and swallow your own pride at times.
Spot on, mate. Couldn't agree more. I guess it's a weird one. I guess so many questions in this live chat. That's quite a good one. So obviously, Tony, you said Gaza was the best player you played with, but what about the best player you played with who never made it to international level? Craig, let's send that question in.
Oh, never made it to international level. It's interesting. I now do some keynote speaking for companies, and I talk about when I was 16 and 17. So we all had those opportunities with young lads at whatever football club it was, and they had some amazing talent, then. And you wonder why one player goes on to do what he does, and a lot of the other ones who you thought at the time were just incredible and were way better than you and whatever it is, don't. So it's purely, and for me, it's all mindset. It really is about the mind, and that's where that strength or weaknesses comes from, and that's where these players then either don't develop or they do develop. But there was one particular player who went on and did okay. No one will probably remember, but a guy called Lee Palin. And Lee Palin was a 16, 17-year-old lad at Aston Villa. I think he went to Forest in the end, what have you. But at one point, he was just absolutely incredibly talented. But I think we all know players throughout our careers that should have achieved a lot more. And certainly didn't. But I think at that young age, we develop so at different rates. And it's interesting looking back at the players that did, because I thought there was 6 or 7. One's a postman, one went to jail, one works in Tesco's, one, I'm going back through them all. What happened to them all? Why did they do that? What's the difference? But Lee Palin he had incredible ability at that age.
Interesting. Andy, was there anyone, looking back at your career, who you think kind of was really, super talented and could have perhaps gone on to do more? Or you expected them to do more?
I totally agree with what Tony just said, though. It's about mindset, and it's about wanting. I just told this story a million times on this show, the championship show, about I wasn't the best player in my youth team. You know what I mean? So never mind the first team. But I wanted it more than anybody. I would have ran over a brick wall and ran through a brick wall. to get where I got and to make my debut in the Premier League. So that's why I wanted it more than anybody else. It wasn't about technical ability. It was about desire, pure desire. There's a player, or there was a player at Middlesbrough. He came over from Argentina, Carlos Marinelli. He was dubbed the new Messi. He was unbelievable. He was the best player. He would have been the best player I played against if he continued to develop the way that he came. When he came, I played in a reserve game with him. We played Bolton Wanderers away at the Reebok. I made about 7 runs in the full 90 minutes. He put me through one-on-one 7 times with just inch-perfect passes. I think I scored 6. I looked like a world beater. The next game, though, when the manager's picking the team for the first game, I didn't play. I had to score in 6. Carlos gets in the first. And people start asking questions why and don't see the bigger picture. I knew exactly the reason why, because he could pick a pass out of either needle. He would take people on. He would receive the ball in between the lines and in between dangerous areas and drive at people. He was an absolute nightmare for the opposition, but dream to play with. And he made a handful of Premier League appearances, but it just didn't happen for him. He got homesick. He wanted to go back to Argentina. And I think once you make those kind of decisions to go back at a young age and start mixing with your friends and not really driving the football, it has an impact, and it certainly had an impact on his career, because he was, and he would have been, I believe, world class. He was looking at Juventus, in us to go to Juventus and Barcelona and all these top world class sides, but he couldn't handle being away. And you know what I mean? Listen, Middlesbrough's not the easiest place to live for probably a local player. But for an Argentinian international, youth international, it would have been really difficult. But it just didn't happen for whatever reason. But yeah, for him, sure. I know obviously up there in Jane at Cardiff City. Obviously when I left for decent money to sign for Cardiff in a less than league, I looked at Leon in my first training session and saw a player that I thought would have gone straight into the Premier League and should be playing in the Premier League. And it was a shame that he didn't. Probably the people around, he made some mistakes off the pitch and obviously ended up, like Tony says, ex-teammates in prison, and he's never really. It's such a shame, and obviously Tony said that it's you can't play someone's life out for them, and you can't play their football career as well. And gutted for Leon as a player, but as a person, you live and die by your own decision, unfortunately.
Yeah, he was like everyone you speak to, Leo. They say how good Leon Jan, like how good he was. I've heard people from QPR say he was literally one of the best players they'd ever seen at that young age. He was just so good, and things off the pitch took him in a direction which meant that he never fulfilled that potential. And of course, it's sad, isn't it? It's just for him, for his his career and his life and stuff, but also what could have been on the pitch as well. You mentioned Andy there about living away, and Will's just asked Tony a question which kind of fits in with that, and it's Will says, how did the move to Italy and Torino come about for you, and also why did you only stay for just about a season?
I didn't really want to leave Leeds at the time, but because I was getting a few injuries, my contract ran out. They offered me a new one when George Graham came, and it was half the money, which I don't know, didn't quite appeal to me at that time. I then actually was on my way to Middlesbrough because Brian Robson gave me a call, but I can't remember who. There was going to be a big signing, and I had to wait for that signing, and then off I went. But as the days ticked by, Graham Souness was at Torino, and he gave me a call and says, you fancy a bit of an Italian experience? I was 32 at that age, and I thought, why not? My father's Italian, so I couldn't speak the language. I soon picked it up, but I understand a bit more of the culture. So it wasn't as I was going in completely blind, but it was wonderful. It was absolutely fantastic. And unfortunately, the second year of my contract, my agent, the way that he negotiated the contract, allowed them to wriggle out. It was quite a lot of money in the second year they needed to pay me, and of course, good old Italians managed to sneak out of that one. I then went on to sue my agent and got the money back that way. But then that's why I went back to Derby County. But I think as an experience, playing abroad, even just going abroad from Australia to England was a huge learning experience for me. But going to Italy as well, another angle of how football is played, how they look after you. They were head and shoulders above what we were doing in England at the time. Of course, we have caught up now. We have such an influence now around for the best in the world, whether it's managers, physios, whatever it may be. But going to Italy opened my eyes up to it, a lot more. And I had a wonderful year there and very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, Tony, we see so many young players, the opportunities to play away from Britain these days are just incredible all around Europe, around the world. Like the scouting systems of clubs around Europe are so good that if you're not getting in your first team as a young age and you're pretty good, there's opportunities to play abroad. Is that something that you would recommend to most, all players, I guess, that just to give it a try and experience it, even if you do only do it for a season or two?
Absolutely. And I think now even more so, simply because the pathway to first teams is getting more and more difficult. The Premier League can go out and just buy the best international players that they want. So you're going to have to be a £40 million player just to get straight into your team. Now, how many players, can do that? There's hardly any. So that pathway, you're getting blocked at, kind of that last bit. So you have to go away somewhere. So we've seen a lot go to the Championship. From the big clubs and do well, come back to their club, and off they go. Mason Mount being like a prime example of that. A lot are going to Germany. The Bundesliga now are looking at our players. Obviously, Sancho being a huge one. They then go and sell back to us for God knows gazillions of pounds. So I just think that it's getting exposed to the right level of football at the right time, because it's okay, these young lads at 18, 19 getting all this money, but that's not what it's about. It's improving, it's getting better, it's making the best of yourself. And I think if you can go play first team football somewhere and from a different angle, whatever country it may be, learn, grow up, and then, come back and show what it's all about. But the Premier League now, for a young lad to get straight in is extremely difficult.
Absolutely. Andy, what about you, mate? Would you, looking back on your career, I know we talked about this a little bit in your episode on My Story, and the opportunity that you had where you could have nearly gone abroad to play. Is that something when you look back, like you would like to have, just for the life experiences, maybe played abroad for a season or two?
Yeah, listen, I think it's that's probably my only regret that I didn't push through the move. I had the opportunity to go to Holland, to Den Haag, and it was something which really appealed to me. It was more of a lifestyle thing that I was looking forward to doing, standard of football, playing in different places, different environments. But for me, being a Northeast boy, playing in Cardiff was like going abroad, because it was that far away, and obviously leaving Cardiff to go to Scotland, So instead of probably the abroad thing, I'm very fortunate enough to play in obviously across different areas, probably just as important to me. But yeah, probably my biggest regret, if I don't have regrets in football, but probably if I was looking at a regret, it would probably have been not pushing through the move to Holland, because it was more of probably a family thing that daughter was at a young age.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Like, there's so many things to consider as well as football, and I think sometimes fans forget that footballers do have other things to consider other than just where they want to play football, of course. There was a really interesting question just now, and I wanted to grab it, and I've lost it because there's so many comments. I'll have to come back to that one. But Tony, wanted to talk to you a bit more about your career, really. Obviously, you came over from Australia at a young age 15, and you got your chance with Aston Villa. How did you feel about leaving Aston Villa to go to Chelsea? I mean, I'm assuming it was a tremendous opportunity, but obviously you must have had a special place in your heart for Aston Villa as the club that gave you at such a young age that chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when I did get my chance at Villa, they looked after me from 15, 16, 17. I got in the first team at 18. I think I was player of the year after. So things were going, really well. But that great old side that won the European Cup was breaking up. And so us youngsters were kind of coming through, and we had kind of too many of those youngsters and not quite enough experience. And especially up top in this one particular, my last season there. And what shocked me the most was the chairman, Deadly Doug Ellis, good old Doug, gave me a call and said, right, I'm coming to pick you up in 1 hour. Chelsea want to buy you. You driving down with me. We want David Speedie, their striker. We're going to do a swap. Now, for me, when you dream as a young lad, not like you, Andy, it's your hometown club. You want to stay there forever and ever, don't you? That would be your absolute dream. Well, Villa gave me my opportunity, and that's what I thought I was going to do. And I was playing really well. Say player of the season. I don't know what more I could have done, but we couldn't score goals. So they were willing to sacrifice to get a striker. I had to go to Chelsea. Myself and David Speedy didn't agree actually on the move, so it didn't happen then in March. But unfortunately, then Villa got relegated. Chelsea came in with a big money offer, and I had the choice. Graham Taylor came in and said, "Right, on you go." He actually was talking in front of all the team right at the end of the season after we got relegated, and he stood up and pointed and said, "You, Dorigo, if you want to leave, go on. There's the door." Thank God he was pointing at Gary Williams, who actually had the same kind of hair as me. We all started laughing. Thank goodness. I got up and said, "Okay, thanks, boss. I'm off." And then I went to London. So what that soon made me realise was football is a business, even way back then. And when it's right for the club, they will do what's right for the club. And that hurt, because I would have stayed there, forever and a day. But I soon worked out actually, grow up, work out what the game's all about. And off I went to Chelsea and had an enjoyable 4 years down there.
And of course, you scored a free kick. Was it in the Zenith Data Systems final at Wembley versus Middlesbrough to take victory away from the Campbell family and others. And Andy's brother was in the chat earlier. He mentioned it. Talk to us a little bit about that experience. Playing for Wembley in a final. Obviously, is it the Zenith Data Systems Cup? I hope I've got that
that's
right.
I think
it was.
It was, yeah. I think you have to also remember at the time of how little Chelsea had won and Middlesbrough had won. So the fans were like itching to go to this ground, and the noise and the atmosphere was just amazing. And then again, me as a little lad in Australia, in Adelaide, dreaming of scoring a winner in a Wembley Cup final and what have you. It all kind of came together, in that day, and it was amazing. It was, and okay, it wasn't the biggest of cups, but it's something I'll certainly never ever forget. And a lot of Middlesbrough fans don't let me forget it either, because I ruined so many childhoods. I had grown men come up to me and tell me the story.
There's a few in the live chat telling me, why did I bring this up?
I am really sorry. But I must admit, when I went back, I can't remember how long ago it was, to watch, I think it was Leeds United playing Middlesbrough, and I had a car park pass. And as soon as I turned up, I says, Dorigo, I've got a car park pass. He says, yes, turn back and go 10 miles that way, and that's where you can park, with a big smile on his face. I had a good laugh, and then he eventually let me in. So, no, listen, we do our job, but fortunately I managed to stick one past Pearsy, who probably should have saved it, to be honest, but I'm glad he didn't.
There we go. Of course, that wasn't the only trophy you won in your career. You won the Division 1, as it was, with Leeds. Like, how special was that? Because not every player gets to experience winning, the Premier League or the Division 1, the top league in Britain, because it has been a select few clubs who've won it in the modern era, really.
Yeah, it was really special, very special indeed. And I think when you get such a tight-knit group of players, the quality players that we had, the leadership certainly of the manager, Howard Wilkinson, but also Gordon Strachan, great young players like Batty and Speed coming through. And there was a togetherness about us. And at Ellen Road, we really did make that a fortress. We never lost that season at home in the league. And it just, went from strength to strength. And of course, you go to your new club. They finished fourth the previous season. Then I signed. And of course, you hope we can go a little bit better. But to clinch something like that is pretty special. So a lot of good games along the way, but as a group of players, it was the best spirit I've ever been involved in, and the standards were extremely high, even in training every single day. And Wilco left no stone unturned, and we did it. Something I'll be very proud of for a long time.
Tony, just to follow up on that. Sorry, Anne. I just wanted to get this one quickly in. GD Parry just said, how did it feel winning Division 1 title and then go all the next season without an away win? So is that right? The season after, you didn't have an away win. So that's quite a contrast in fortunes.
Quite a contrast. It was a flippin' disaster. What are you on about? And that was a contrast. Anyway.
Being diplomatic.
Yeah, exactly. No problems at all. And our home form, would you believe, we would have finished third or fourth. That was we had a great home form. We just could not win away. And it's funny what Andy, before we were talking about superstitions. Well, suddenly Howard ended up changing everything. As soon as we, couldn't get a win, we'd have a different hotel. We'd train at different times. We'd eat at different times. We did all this, stuff differently, which it was just a hole we got into and just could not get out. I think if you look back as well, that was the first season of the no back pass rule, which I think kind of slightly affected us as well. But yeah, it was it certainly was a shock. I think we recovered the following season, but we didn't make a great defence of our title, unfortunately.
Yeah. Sorry, and I cut you off, mate.
No, it's all right. No, don't worry. Tony, my question was going to be: I've obviously been named in the best 11 for the first Premier League season, and obviously special accolades individually. How special was that for you? Because it's nice to win things as a team, but individually sometimes it's to be recognised is even better. So how special were personal awards to you?
They are nice. Obviously, you look back at those sort of things. I think they are. Really pleasing. I think it's your pros that you're playing with and against that votes. So that was pretty special. I also think the Player of the Year, just the fans, and like you, Andy, just give your all, just give absolutely everything. That's all you can do, and fans appreciate that. Certainly, Leeds fans did. I was Player of the Year at Aston Villa, at Chelsea, at Leeds United, and Torino in Italy. My first 4 clubs. After that, I was pretty rubbish, to be honest. My legs went. But anyway, it's as long as you just die for the shirt, you enjoy what you do. So to get that sort of awards, looking back, is pretty nice. At least you did everything you could.
But you just said there about running through a brick wall for your club and stuff. And obviously, I do my research on here and read as much as I can up about our guests and stuff. And the word what comes is loyal. And people say how loyal you are to club. And how proud does that make you feel? And that supporters see you as that. You know what I mean? That I wouldn't say it's a bad word to be said about you. You want to be told as the best player and the technically best player. But for me, sometimes I want to be known as that person who ran around the most, or ran around and died for the shirt and wanted to run through a brick wall and things. I mean, that was the most special thing that people remember me from working hard and running around. I never said that I was the best player at any of my clubs. I wanted to be remembered when I retired from just running around and trying my best, because for me, that's what you probably owe to the people who pay your wages.
Well, absolutely right. And that's why people say to me, "Oh, did you not enjoy playing at that club or this club?" Well, no, I got paid lots of money to do something I absolutely loved in front of fans that wanted to cheer me. I said, how can you not, enjoy those sort of things? But I'd go a step further in that. For me, I look back at my career and think, did I do the best that I could do? Was it the best version of me, wherever I went? And I did. I just tried my best wherever that got me, wherever that ended up. Yeah, obviously, fortunately, I won titles and this, that, and the other. But I just did the best that I could, each and every single time. And I think people appreciate that, and that's I'm certainly proud of that, and I'm sure you are as well, Andy. That's exactly what you were. You were, wholehearted, and you gave it everything, and I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, that's I agree. Obviously, Tony, you just mentioned there about how legs went and coming towards the end of your career and things. So transition out of the game, how did you find it? Because when you hear the stories and it affects different players in different ways about leaving the game. That some find the transition's quite easy, some find it really difficult, and that's probably the leaving the changing room and being involved in loads of people 1 minute, and then next minute you're not. 1 minute you're a footballer, next minute you're not. Next minute you're somebody, next minute you're not. People look at it and talk about it in so different ways and so different mannerisms, for example. But how did you find the transition from one day being a footballer and next minute not?
I think what's most important is that is one part of your life, and then that stops and something else starts again. You will never ever replicate what goes on in that changing room. I'll never replicate going to, I don't know, Anfield and being 1-0 up and, hanging on 10 minutes to go and suddenly getting those 3 points and, going crazy. That doesn't happen. So as long as you understand that and don't try and, think that's always going to be there. For me, it was a case of what would I like to do? And obviously I wanted to stay within the game somehow, but did I want to be a coach? Did I want to be a manager? I've got my badges and what have you, but I think unless you are committed to something, don't do it. You're not going to be doing it very well. And so what I enjoyed was certainly TV and punditry and what have you. So I went into ITV. I got a 3-year contract, a TV contract, and kind of stayed in the media game kind of ever since. And now, very luckily, I'm back with Leeds United for the last few years doing all their stuff and being an ambassador and what have you. So I still love the game. You don't have to be a manager wherever it is, but I always found other things that I enjoy, and there's lots of stuff out there, to do. I actually did property developing down in the Algarve, and I was always interested in plenty of different things, but it's not easy. I know that, but the lads have to find something they enjoy, whatever that may be, and go and be the best you can at that and get that sort of enjoyment. Yeah. But it is not a straightforward thing for sure.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And obviously, me and Si spoke on here about mental health and the way that it affects people. With social media, I think that transition of being a footballer is difficult. I think I'm so thankful that social media is around. I think it adds unnecessary pressure onto people. I tried to not be a footballer outside of when I left training. So, especially when I had kids, and I think when families become involved, I think it's you try to step away from that football and try to put it sometimes as a job. You know what I mean? That when I go to training and try to be the best footballer I can be, I try to work hard. But when I go home, I want to be the best person I can be, the best family man I can be, and try to save energy, of course, because I'm building up to something, which is Saturday or a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night or a Friday night and a Sunday afternoon, which where football's going. But it must be so hard now because there's extra pressures. You're away from home a lot more than probably we used to be. Traveling, playing in Europe, international weeks, blah blah blah. It's so difficult now, and it adds a lot more pressure. And then you've got camera phones, you've got social media, you've got all this rubbish. What's going on? It must be horrific now being a young player, and added all that pressure. We spoke, Si, haven't we, about the extra pressures added on football and what clubs potentially can do. Yeah. Tony, are you aware of anything that Leeds have got in place? I know we had Klaus Lundekvam on, and obviously Southampton now have employed him and another couple of ex-players to help players who are struggling in terms of and the media, social media.
I don't. I actually did have a chat with Andrea Radrizzani, the Leeds United owner, about something like that. But I think I agree with you in that the social media side now just adds another layer of pressure on these lads. But you also got to think of all the lads that don't make it. The ones that suddenly are under that pressure from 8, 9, 10, 11. I think it's just crazy. These young boys are just trying to grow up, for goodness sake, and even they get heaped pressure on them. And of those that are going through, how many make it? What, 2% or whatever it is? It's something ridiculous. So there's so many layers in there for I think help and assistance. The PFA, I know are trying to do their part as well in helping not only those lads from 17, 18 when they're in clubs, but the ones that are retiring now as well, to give them some direction. And in fact, the PFA, I am very proud to say, I was the first person that they funded a computer for way back in 1985. The computer was giant, by the way, a black and white bloody thing that took up most of the room.
That's incredible.
And I'm pressing on this keyboard, and all the lads are going, what bloody hell you got that for? What the hell is that? Can we play games on it or ping pong or something? But no, you can't do that. Wow. So they were there. They're there to access and help. But some lads sometimes, as you know, Andy, don't want to speak up. They just want to be one of the lads and what have you. But they need some help and guidance, and we all do at times. And it is out there for you. But I agree that the pressure is certainly on.
I totally agree. Obviously, in my situation, the PFA were great with me. I was probably 6 months a little bit later than I wanted to go to them, but I got pushed to them. I would have liked somebody to push me towards them a little bit quicker. And I think that there's that many people now, even agents and representatives and people now are aware that the pressures which go on football, they need just some advice and some guidance. And the guidance is there. I know there's other companies. I know ex-footballers have set up companies. I know Emil Heskey and some other players have set up companies to help and guide these players during their journey as a footballer, which is absolutely fantastic because they've been there like we have and wore the T-shirt, so to speak, and have got the experiences, good and bad, because they're not just Premier League footballers, winners, international players. They've got a whole range of players who've got released at 16 or got injured at 21 or played for the full England squad. So it's amazing initiative, which is great. But you know, I mean, first and foremost, there are people out there, and if there are any players, current players, ex-players who are watching here and just get the help and get some advice from people, because Tony just said about the PFA, they push me towards education again. I hated school, I'll be honest. Couldn't stand it. I've now got 2 degrees. I teach in a school. If someone had said that to me during my football career, I'd have laughed in the face, because I just think it was ridiculous. But when you speak to the Richard Jobsons of this world, who was absolutely brilliant with me, the Andy Barlows, you know what I mean, those kind of guys, I can't speak highly of enough. You know what I mean? But I just wish that somebody had pushed me a year earlier or 6 months earlier. But I think they're fantastic people, great people,
Absolutely.
great people. Si, I think to finish, do you want to pick three questions if we've got 3 to finish from our lovely viewers?
I can indeed. Some fantastic comments. I've just got to check this one up because it's a super chat, so obviously takes priority. Gaz says, such a good show. Have another super chat. Best football pod out there. Vote for best footy pod award. I appreciate that, guys. That's really cool. And a few others have sent. John Bywater would like to know who the guest is next week. John, calm down. Let's finish this week first.
Enjoy tonight, John.
No, he did say it's been a fantastic episode, and he's really enjoyed Tony's outlook. I'm just winding him up a little bit. Okay, so Donna Perry, I know, asked earlier, and this was the question I was trying to find earlier. She said, could you give us, because we do have a large Welsh contingent in our live chat, including myself, could you tell us a nice Gary Speed story?
A nice Gary Speed story.
Just a Gary Speed story, I guess.
To be honest, every story will be nice, because I must admit what a fantastic player he was, but he's even more as a man. And he was a young man. He was, I think, I was 25, I think, when I joined Leeds United. So he was just a few years younger. But for him to play in front of me, I've never known like a left midfielder or a left winger come to me and ask where he has to go. What position would you like me, Tony? Would you like me here? Would you like me there? Normally you're screaming at those lazy buggers to come back and do your job. But Speedo was like on it like a bonnet. He was just fantastic. And he just wanted to learn. He wanted to soak it all up. But, he was a great player. I mean, he could tackle. He had a great left foot, right foot. He could volley. In the air, he was amazing. He could dribble. And the guy was so good looking as well. For God's sake, he was just sickening. I mean, he was just wonderful. And, I can't speak highly enough. And Speedo for me was, one of the best teammates I've played with. And what a lovely, lovely man. And just I'm delighted to have known him, that many years and played with him. And he was a very, very special guy.
Excellent. Thanks. So last couple of questions. We've got one about you, and then one general one for the both of you. So we'll go with the one directed specifically to Tony. First, Reece David Evans says, what means more to you, awards voted for by your peers, or awards from media, or awards from fans?
I would have to go. Peers is pretty special, because these are the guys that certainly understand the game inside out. Not that the fans don't, but these are your contemporaries, and to get it off of them is pretty cool. But you know what? Hey, I'll take any award. It's great. Why not?
And then we'll read out Gaz's question.
I totally agree.
Yeah, spot on. If it was in me, I think I'd probably appreciate the award from your peers, because they're the people you're playing with, competing against. They know the sacrifices that you go through to reach the best levels you can. Gaz sent in a couple of super chats tonight, so we'll go with Gaz to finish. And he would like to know: would you guys rather pay 72 million for Jadon Sancho, age 21, or 100 million for Jack Grealish, age 25? Andy, we'll go to you first on that one, mate, and then we'll finish with Tony nicely. What do you think?
I'm all for pace. I love my pace from my best 11 team selection. So I'm going to go Jadon Sancho. I think he's got the natural ability. I'm not saying Jack's a bad player, by the way, but by any means. But I just think with what Jadon would bring to the party, with his trickery, with his pace, with his taking people on. You know, I'm really looking forward to seeing him in the Premier League week in, week out, and seeing him excel. Hopefully, bringing what he had at Dortmund and more, and kicking on to that next level for club and country as well. Because obviously, with the World Cup coming around the corner, if he can play regular football this year, this current season, England will have a world beater on their hands come Qatar.
What about you, Tony? Which one would you go for?
Can I pay 30 million for one of them and pocket the rest? Is that possible?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy money. Isn't it?
It's nuts. But I tell you what is important though. It's how you get the best out of those players. So it's okay buying a Sancho and buying a Grealish. It's then what you build around him, allowed him to kind of flourish and show what they can do. But what you have got in those two players is two of arguably the most talented players in the England squad. They can change things and make things happen. Grealish would be interesting at City with those kind of players around. How will he get on, like not being that absolute number one? Because you can't tell me De Bruyne is going to run the show. So that's going to be an interesting one. Yet Sancho, the goals that he scored and the amount of assists that he scored at Dortmund was just absolutely phenomenal. So it'll be interesting. It's the going rate, whatever it is. But it's more to do with, I think, who can get the best out of their player. That will end up being the most money. But I'd rather just pay 30 million and pocket the rest, just for the record.
Yeah, it's interesting though, isn't it? That Go on, Anne.
Just on that, I think with transfer fees, Tony just mentioned it there. You've got obviously White signing for Arsenal for 50 million. You've got Varane signing for United for less, and people are jumping on the back of a price tag and blaming players basically. You know what I mean? White he's taking a lot of stick on social media about price tag. It's not his fault. He's done his job at Brighton. He's got selected in England squad on ability alone. If people agree with it or don't agree with it, it wasn't his decision to be selected. Gareth picked him, so he was the choice. And Arsenal have bought him. I mean, they bought him for potential as well as current form. So for me, you know what I mean? Yes, it's a lot of money, but in 10 years, 5 years time, you know what I mean? He could be a snip for if he gets Arsenal clean sheets, or he gets them back in the Champions League, or he gets them a title or a Champions League place or an FA Cup. You know what I mean? So it's a fine margins. Arsenal are missing a huge piece of the jigsaw, and they need a defender. And you know what I mean? I know I'm going off on tangent a little bit, but he's on par with those kind of players that you just mentioned. So it would be a big signing for a lot of money though.
Yeah, I think he fits the bill for what Arsenal need. Arsenal were never going to be able to sign like a Champions League defender at the moment, because they're not in the Champions League and they're not really competing at that level. So they had to look at potential. And I think Ben White fits the bill. But of course, English players come with a premium. And I mean, you even with Jadon, going back to the original question, Jadon Sancho is only 72 million from Dortmund because he's coming from Germany, whereas Jack Grealish, because he's coming from Premier League to Premier League clubs, is an extra 30 million on top. It's extortionate money. I don't think Jack Grealish is a £100 million player yet, but he could be in the future. Tony, we've had a lot of people saying, can Tony Dorigo come back for part 2 on the Andy Campbell Football Show? As a rule, we generally only have guests on once, but I think I'd speak for Andy and say that you are most welcome back anytime, because it's been absolutely phenomenal.
I'd be greedy. I'd be greedy side. I'd have Tony on every week, but I know he's got commitments with ITV, with Leeds United. So
Gee, you lot were kicking me out the door just a minute ago. Now I'm back next time. Listen, I really enjoyed it. Anytime, guys. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal Tony show. I really appreciate it. Andy Campbell, appreciate it, mate. And listen, you got through to 9:05 and you didn't get kicked out once.
I know. I'm buzzing.
You survived.
Absolutely buzzing.
So
that's it's improvements are getting better slowly and surely. So when people in the group chat start saying they've got the Andy Campbell internet, no, just stop it now. You know
that's just the new thing now. Isn't it? That's whenever anyone has an internet problem, my internet's doing an Andy Campbell. Guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, really appreciate it. If we didn't get to any of the questions, I do apologize. Tried to get through as many as we could. As always, really appreciate you guys tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all that stuff. Please do subscribe, follow, all the good stuff. Really helps us grow and find new viewers, new listeners. And of course, check out the audio version tomorrow, which will be released on the Sports Social Podcast Network and all Spotify, Stitcher. And check out our new little website through the Sports Social as well. But in the meantime, we will be back next Monday. And look out for news as well, because the championship is back. So you never know what might turn up on Friday. Look out on our social medias for that. Andy Campbell, would you like to tell the people anything further before I play the clip?
No, I'm not gonna give out the guests for next Monday. I think
Tony's
been a great guest. I don't want to show any disrespect and talk about next week's guest. Watch the social media. Look out for Friday, and watch this space.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't suggesting name the guest. No, I want Tony Dorigo back next week. Guys, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Tony, thank you. Andy, thank you.
Thanks,
and
Tony.
the viewers, thank you.
Cheers, Andy, mate.
Cheers.
Good to speak to you.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's in! Campbell comes off the bench to be a hero, a superhero. Breakthrough. It's taken a while. It's been walked away.
We are the ones who mark a new beginning. We are the ones of the spoken word.